Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Beginner Basics Monk, where I'm going to teach you how to become a Kung Fu master in Dungeons & Dragons Online. The Monk used to be one of the more complicated classes in the game and kind of had a bit of a learning curve to it, but SSG did a good job of streamlining it with a recent rework and making it a lot more accessible, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So today I'm going to be going over the basics of Monk, everything you need to know about it, but the build featured here in the video will in fact be of a hand wraps focused Monk, but you can use other weapons if you like. So let's get started with the Monk's base stats. So Monks use mostly Dexterity, Wisdom, and Constitution. Wisdom fuels basically all of the Monk abilities. Almost everything in Monk scales off of Wisdom. It also affects your ki, which we'll get into in a minute. But if you have a Monk ability, like the Monk's Stunning Fist, or the Incineration Wave, which you can send out as a Henshin Mystic, or the Smoke Bomb you can drop as a Ninja Spy, Wisdom is going to play a role. Additionally, Dexterity is important because you need Dexterity for two-weapon fighting, which a lot of Monks are going to do. Using your fists counts as two weapons because you got two of these, so that can be important. However, if you are playing a quarterstaff Monk, you'll want to have Strength instead because you need two-handed fighting, which uses Strength. So if you're using dual wielding or your fists, you want to go with Dexterity, but if you are using a two-handed weapon, the quarterstaff, you want to go with your Strength. Additionally, both Dex and Wisdom feed into your armor class, allowing Monks to have a very, very high armor class and be very tanky, even though they're not actually wearing any armor, which is really good. And then lastly, Constitution's important because you need it for your health, but also for your concentration. So this is where we're going to talk about ki. Ki, if you actually look at your character, is this yellow bar you might have seen on some other people, or when you put a Monk on or start playing a Monk, you might notice the ki bar here. The way that ki functions is different from spell points, but it's a resource exclusive to Monk-style characters. Basically, some abilities will cost ki. So Stunning Fist, one of the attacks I can have here, where I punch a guy and I stun him, costs 15 ki. So if I press the button, I go down to 0 ki. How do you get ki? The answer is by attacking enemies. So if I punch an enemy, I will get 1 ki back. Every time I hit an enemy, I get 1 ki. Now, you can get more ki from different abilities. For example, Monks have different stances, like there's the Sun stance, which while active gives an extra ki on hit, so I get 2 ki per strike. Alternatively, there's an ability we get later that allows us to get more ki per hit, so you actually get 2 extra, so you get 3 ki per strike. And there's a stat called Double Strike, which allows you to hit twice. Well, if you double strike, you get twice as much ki. So, getting ki back means getting into combat. So Monks get into combat and fight people, which gives them ki, which then allows them to fuel their special abilities. So it's pretty intuitive once you start using it. The thing is, you can't maintain your ki forever. That's based on your concentration. So you'll notice my ki is 15. If my ki goes above my concentration total, which is 15 here, then I start to lose ki to get back to my concentration. So that's one of the reasons why concentration is an important stat for Monks, because if I have, let's say, 20 ki, and then I just sit and wait, you'll notice it'll be a minus here, and that will tell me what my ki is changing per second. This plus 0, it means my ki is not changing while I'm standing around. You can get bonuses that increase your ki generation. You can get like a passive, so it just generates over time. So it might say +1 or +2. Or, as I said, if you have lots of ki, your ki will go down instead. Now, this might seem like a big deal, and it might seem like there's a lot to manage here, but to be honest with you, if you are fighting, you'll have all the ki that you could ever want, so I don't think you need to stress about ki too much. You're going to have a lot in this character build. Now, moving on, just before we move on to the skills, we've got just a bunch of defensives. Monks are wearing cloth armor, which means they actually don't get the highest magical resistance that you can get. Your magical resistance rating is based on your armor type. So unarmored characters like Monks, this number will cap at 50, which means you can only mitigate about 30% of the damage you take from magic. Now, that's still good, but the way that Monks mitigate magic is with their saving throws. Monks have very high saves, so you can take a lot of damage from magic, so you just need to be mindful of that. That is kind of the Monk's weakness. You'll dodge every sword attack that comes to hit you, as Monks get a lot of dodge chance as well as armor class, but the spells can mess you up. Additionally, Monks don't generally need spell power, but you do get some healing on a Monk, and your healing does scale off of healing spell power or positive spell power, so you can always check how much you have here in case you decide to throw on some spell power for some of your healing. Now, when we go into the skills, I only have a few skills here for you. Jump, so you can jump high. Tumble, so you can keep yourself safe. And concentration for your ability to maintain your ki, as well as use magic device. Balance can also be good if you're either single weapon fighting or you just want to get back up quickly. So maybe you're okay drinking jump potions and you don't care too much about jump, so you want to have balance. That's also fine if you just want to swap that out. But this is the preferred route I would do here. Now, the reason why we put points into Tumble is because tumbling is another key skill that monks can use to stay alive. If you look down here, you'll notice I have 4 of these little baubles. These are tumble charges, and so I can use these to tumble. So to tumble, you hold down the block key, which is shift by default, and I enter this kind of stance here, so my character's like, I got my guard up. And then if I decide to press a direction, so if I press forward, my character will tumble and it'll expend one of these charges. The tumble gives you a bonus to your dodge and reflex saves. Well, it gives you a bonus to reflex saves equal to your tumble score. So if I want to get through a trap, my reflex is plus 11 right now, so I may or may not save against the trap. But if I tumble, I add 17, so my reflex saves jumps up to 28 just for 1 second. It's like a bit of a dodge there. But on top of that, I also get to add a little bit of extra armor class to my tumble from some monk abilities. And lastly, if you notice, it says dodge chance 11%. If I tumble, during my tumble, I have 95% dodge. So you think of tumbles as like immunity frames from a standard action game. So imagine you're playing Dark Souls. If a monster's coming at me and they're about to take a big swing, I can just tumble back and get out of the way and everything will be fine. However, to make tumbling easy for you, make sure you go into the options menu, and under gameplay, you're going to find experimental tumble controls. When you turn this on, instead of having to stand still, block, and then tumble, instead, if you're just walking forward and you tap the block key, your character will just tumble, meaning you can be backing up, and if a monster's about to take a big swing, whoop, I'm out of the way, and now I'm in a safe place. Tumble is an extremely defensive skill, and these little charges come back once every 12 seconds, so in between fights, you're going to get most of your charges back, and then you can use them in combat to keep yourself safe, happy, and healthy. Now, when we move on to feats, this character does take a combat style. You're going to take the 2-weapon fighting combat style, because again, you got 2 weapons. If you are playing a different type of build, maybe you want to dual wield short swords or commas, you still want 2-weapon fighting. But again, if you want to take a quarterstaff build, you want to have strength. So the build that is here is a dex build. You want to swap into strength instead and take 2-handed fighting for your quarterstaff. Additionally, we grab dodge and mobility. Dodge just grants some extra dodge bonus, and mobility is what grants extra armor class while tumbling, as well as gaining extra tumble charges. But this is most important for an ability called Whirlwind Attack. One of the things that monks struggle with a lot in the early game is having area of effect attacks, so we get Whirlwind Attack relatively early as a monk, so I can do this cool attack, and now all of a sudden I'm hitting everybody around me twice, which not only does a good amount of damage and helps me clear enemies out, but if I have 5 kobolds near me, I hit them all twice, which generates me a huge amount of ki. And this has no cost and a 5-second cooldown, so you can just spam this to deal AoE damage, and it feels pretty good. As far as the feats going forward, we take the critical based feats like Swords to Plowshares, which increases the critical chance of hand wraps, which is the type of weapon you use when you're using your fist. You put hand wraps on your hands, so it gives you that extra damage. And then on top of that, we also pick up other improved critical feats and just generally more feats to improve the damage of the character. Now, monks don't have any spells on them whatsoever, so you don't have to worry about that. But like I said, spell power can be relevant for some of your abilities, and that's where we actually get into the enhancements here. But before we get in the enhancements, the last thing I want to talk about base monk is the stances. There are 4 stances that you can use here. So there's the wind stance, the earth, mountain stance, the fire stance, and the ocean stance. Now, each stance raises a stat and lowers a stat. So ocean is plus wisdom, but minus strength, and strength is plus strength minus wisdom. So they're like the opposite versions. Similarly, earth is bonus con minus dex, and wind is plus dex minus con. Each one has a role. Wind stance gives you fast attacks on top of that. Earth or mountain stance gives you more defense, but also makes you generate more aggro if you want to play like a tanky type monk for your group. Sun stance gives you more ki when you attack monsters and also gives you more critical damage at higher levels. And ocean stance gives you more dodge and a huge amount of saving throw bonuses. So this makes you very, very defensive. For this build, we will be using the ocean stance. Some builds will use others, but for this build, you will not need anything else. You will just want to use the ocean stance. Ocean stance is very, very good for this character build, as it gives a huge amount of dodge. So right now, I don't really have any good items equipped. I just have the stuff I started with, and my character has a total dodge of 17%, which is extremely high for the low levels, and it only gets better as we go. Now, there is one caveat. Because we start with the low strength and Ocean Stance gives an even lower strength, your carry load is actually quite low on a character like this. So just be mindful when you're playing as a monk. Try to get a strength item somewhere to increase your strength, or join a guild so you can get ship buffs so you can get a higher carry capacity. If you become medium load, you lose all your monk abilities, so you can't pick up too many armor pieces and things from chests. So if you're getting started with this character, if you see a tower shield in a chest, just leave it there. It's too heavy. You don't want to worry about it. Or as I said, if you have past lives, if you have tomes, if you have access to a guild ship, or if you just have a piece of strength gear on, all those things will help out with that one. Just make sure you don't get over encumbered, because that will happen to you sometimes. Now, one of the things I want to talk about here is the enhancements. There are different ways to play your monk and different ways to build it. The character we are building today is a Shinto monk, and that is the type of monk we are going to build. But there is also the Henshin Mystic and the Ninja Spy. So I'm going to give you a quick breakdown of all three. Not only that, there is also the racial tree, which you can spend your points into if you wish. Now, for this character, we have gone with the race Wood Elf. You don't have to be a Wood Elf if you don't want to. I just feel like it has a good set of stats for this character, but I will leave some recommendations in the actual build itself. We're not spending points in the Wood Elf tree anyway, so it really doesn't matter that much. So, back in the day, each tree was specific to a weapon type, but now it's just specific to a style. So it used to be Henshin Mystic, Quarterstaff, and spells. Ninja Spy was bladed weapons and kind of like ninja kind of maneuvers and tricks. And Shinto was good old-fashioned beat 'em up kung fu movie goodness. They have changed it now, so all three trees function. Shinto still has a bunch of those like special moves, but it's more focused on kind of purity and smiting tainted creatures. So this tree not only gives you abilities like Iron Skin, which defends yourself, it also gives you Hands of Healing, where this has no cost, and as a monk I can just press a button and then boom, I heal myself and everybody around me, which scales off of the positive spell power, and you will use this throughout the entire game. It is very, very good. On top of that, you also get stuff like Jade Strike, which allows you to increase the amount of damage a monster takes from physical damage. So you Jade Strike them and now your punches hit harder. But on top of that, you can also get Tomb of Jade, where you can punch a guy and now they get locked in a Tomb of Jade, and it's one of the most powerful stuns in the entire game. And as you build up, increasing the power of your attacks, you get to some of the high tier stuff like Kukendo, which is where you stare at an enemy and your force of will literally stuns them and they can't do anything. Or Rise of the Phoenix, which can be used while dead to bring yourself back from the dead. So this is the type of character we are playing. It is a Shinto monk, so kind of your classic Kung Fu style monk. However, Henshin Mystic is also pretty good. This focuses on some like kind of monk spell type abilities. So you kind of get like a key bolt where you can shoot an energy blast out of your hands. You get the Cauldron of Flame where you wrap yourself in a bunch of fire and it allows you to burn enemies. But also while you're in the cauldron, you become empowered and you do more damage. And you also have the Incinerating Wave where you literally shoot out a wave of fire that's purple and it burns everything as it goes across. Additionally, this character also grabs things like Void Strike, where you can hit a guy and erase them from existence, which is kind of cool, and several other interesting abilities. A lot more defensive as well, as more defensive things in this tree. And you also get something called a Trance. This is a ability called Clear Your Mind. And what this does is it allows you to add wisdom onto your damage as well as onto empowering your tactical abilities. So like your stuns and making your stuns stronger and things like that. Really powerful abilities. You want to take this. Another thing that Henshin Mystic gives, which is relevant to the character that we're building, is at the beginning, Riddle of Fire. This lets you use your Wisdom modifier to hit enemies, and this lets you use your Wisdom, Keybolt lets you use your Wisdom modifier to damage enemies. This is relevant because it means that you have a little bit of dexterity that you need to be able to use two-weapon fighting, but all of your points are actually going to be going into Wisdom. So Wisdom is how much ki you have. Wisdom also becomes your ability to hit enemies with your attacks and spells, but then also it's the power of your base hits. Everything scales into one stat, so effectively Con and Wisdom become your main stats, and then if you can get some dexterity on the side, it's nice, but you don't need it. Additionally, this ability here also gives you an extra 2 ki per strike, so when I punch an enemy, instead of getting 1 ki, I now get 3 every time. Or in the example where there's 5 kobolds around me, if I press whirlwind attack, I also am hitting if there's 5 enemies, I hit all of them twice, so that's 10 hits at 3 ki per hit. That's all of a sudden 30 ki from just pressing one button on the keyboard, and I can use that to funnel and power all of my other abilities. So that's kind of the part about Henshin Mystic. And then lastly, we have Ninja Spy. Ninja Spy focuses on like sneak attack damage, so being able to like attack from the shadows. It also lets you use your dexterity to hit and damage with weapons, as well as giving you some proficiencies with bladed weapons like short swords. You can now use them as key weapons, because that is also another thing. Monks need to be centered. I can't believe I skipped this, so I should probably mention this. But monks need to be centered to use any of their abilities. If you're not centered, all of your monk abilities turn off. This is really important. So if you are uncentered, you can't use anything. No stunning fist, you don't get your wisdom to your armor class anymore, your ki goes to 0, you have to stay centered. Being centered means you don't wear armor, you're not overburdened, and you're using a monk weapon, or no weapon, which is both fine. So you can't use a greatsword as a monk by default. There are ways to do this with multi-classing, but just know you have to make sure you use the monk weapons. And if you're unsure what is a monk weapon, you can just go into your proficiencies and you'll be able to see the different weapons that you can use. Oddly enough, I do have longsword, longbow, and rapier and shortbow. Because these weapons here, you're technically allowed to use as a wood elf, but these, don't be fooled, you can't use these as a monk weapon. It's just hand wraps, shuriken, hand axe, and quarterstaff is not on here for some reason, but also quarterstaff. And then if you go into Ninja Spy, you will also get short sword as well. So make sure you're using monk weapons. Again, this is a hand wrap build, so you're going to want to use hand wraps with it, but don't just like equip a greatsword and then wonder why your ki is 0. That is why. But anyways, Ninja Spy lets you use your dexterity as your main attacking stat. Again, you can do that with this build. We're going to go wisdom, so using the Henshin Mystic, but you can get dexterity as well, so you can make a dex-based monk if you wish. And then again, we got some cool stuff. You can like drop a flashbang on enemies. You get some poisons. You kind of got like some shadow abilities. You can summon shadows to fight for you. You also get an ability called Touch of Death, which ironically enough does not kill. It just does damage, which is kind of funny. You can also like summon a decoy, so you can like drop like a kind of a target dummy that enemies can fight up against. So there's some cool abilities you can get in Ninja Spy. In my opinion, it's the weakest of the 3 trees, but it is still interesting. This build is not a Ninja Spy build. We will be focusing on Henshin Mystic and Shin Tao instead. So how exactly do you go through this character when you're looking at the actual points? The way you want to start out is you're going to go into Henshin Mystic here because you really want to get wisdom to hit and damage. This is going to make your character feel a million times better. Until level 3, your fist damage is going to kind of suck, and there's no real way to fix that. But once you get to level 3 and you get Keybolt, it's going to feel good. However, along the way, you're going to pick up some other stuff. You're going to grab this Porous Soul ability. This just gives you an attack you can press. So it's these like multicolored attacks here. They just cost ki, but they deal a little bit of extra damage, and they make monsters vulnerable to those elements. So for you, it doesn't really matter that much which button you press, but if, let's say you're playing with a friend and they're playing like a fire sorcerer, you can just press all-consuming flame on monsters, and now not only do you deal a little bit of fire damage, but it makes them take more fire damage for your friends, which is kind of cool. But most importantly, you get this Elemental Soul ability. What this does is it adds elemental damage onto all your attacks, which gives you a huge boost during the leveling process. So you get these stances that I have here. So let's use this fire example. If I click this button, now all of a sudden I add fire damage onto all of my attacks. So I can just punch guys and I get extra fire damage just automatically. And that's going to help you until you get the wisdom to hit and damage. Once you get to level 3, you get the Keybolt and you have the Elemental Soul going. Your character is going to start gliding. It's going to feel super smooth. So you basically want to spend your points in here grabbing all of this stuff. I also recommend you take Fist of Iron because this is just a really short cooldown ability, 3 seconds. It costs 5 ki and it does a ton of damage. So it's really, really good there. Then we move into the Shintao tree, grabbing some extra hit, or the ability to hit more often with our unarmed attacks, or our offhand attacks. You grab this attack here, Quick Strike, which gives you a huge amount of Double Strike, which is a really good stat. Double Strike lets you hit twice, so pretty useful. And then we take Hand of Healing, which as long as you have a healing spell power item equipped, which you can just find as you go along, as well as putting points in the Shintao tree, you can heal yourself and your friends. This has no cost. You can just press it every 9 seconds and just heal yourself. And it's one of the things that has made Monk one of the best leveling characters. On top of that, while leveling, you will be grabbing the Whirlwind Attack feat, so your character will feel pretty powerful. Once we have all of these things, this is kind of the core of your character. 10 points here and 14 points here. You can get this by level 6. Your character will have all of the tools and you'll be able to level no problem. So you go into Ninja Spy to pick up this ability here, Action Boost Haste. Action Boost Haste is just a 30% boost once you max it out to your attack speed when you press it. And it's the most damaging thing in the entire game, so you're going to love that. Then you're going to finish out Shin Tao with all the points in the build guide. Then you go and finish out Henshin Mystic, and then you're basically done. It's pretty straightforward from there. Now, the thing is, when you're leveling, as I mentioned before, you might not have the best gear. So how are you actually going to be picking up some items for your character? What if you need things for your adventure? Well, I'm going to show you where you can get some extra tools. Number one, you won't always have this ability, this Hands of Healing spell. And as I mentioned before, you are kind of weak to magic, especially magic that you can't save against. Some monsters will cast spells at you, like ray spells, which just if they hit you, you can dodge them. So if you see a ray coming at you, you can get out of the way. But if they hit you, you're going to take the damage. So maybe you want to resist those things. And this is where you get it. If you're in the harbor, I would recommend you go into the marketplace. You head to the Stormreach market through here, and then in the center of the marketplace, you're going to find a vendor that is going to sell you different types of potions that you can use. Again, monks are not spellcasters, so you can't just cast defensive spells on yourself or buff, but you can go to the potion vendor if you want. And then at the potion vendor, you can buy potions of either main stats. So maybe you want to buy a Cat's Grace potion to increase your defenses. You could buy potions of Owl's Wisdom to also increase your defenses and your offenses as well, until you get an item to replace these potions. You can also grab the elemental resistances, which is nice, as well as some cure spells. You can get like Cure Light and Cure Moderate Wounds here, and then some also removal things like curse removal or disease removal or blindness removal. Because the first time you get blinded in a quest and it lasts for like 2 minutes and you can't see anything, you're gonna go, I should bring one of these with me at all times, just in case. Now, you might grow up and eventually outgrow this potion vendor, so you might want to know where the next potion vendor is. And so I'm going to take you into House Jarasco, which is just nearby from the market. You're just going to head out here, and we're going to go into a place called Feather Falls Apothecary. At the apothecary shop, you can buy more powerful potions. So as you go through your journey, you may find yourself needing to upgrade certain things, and that's okay. It's good. It's part of the adventurer's journey. Once you have more money, you go to the more upscale parts of the city, and you buy better potions to better affect your character as you're going. So, Kolish Ren here has several different potions you can use for a higher level monk. Not only can you get Cure Serious Wounds, you can actually use these at level 1, but they're just more expensive, so you might not be able to afford them. But on top of that, you can now buy Heroism Potions, which gives you a +2 to hit, as well as +2 to your saves and all your skill checks. That's your concentration, that's your jump height, that's your tumbling. It's really nice. But then on top of that, you can buy Haste Potions, which gives you a bonus to your attack speed. And if you have the money, you can just chug these back like it's nothing. Big fan of Haste Potions. They can be very, very good. All right, now it's time to talk about some monk pro tips when it comes to combat and how combat generally should go. So, as I mentioned before, you have your Whirlwind attack, which lets you get a lot of extra ki from monsters. So, if I walk over here into this room, and I see several different monsters attacking me, like these different kobolds, I could punch them individually to generate ki, but I can also use my Whirlwind attack, which hits a whole bunch of extra times, and now very quickly gives me that ki. So now I can use those for all of the special abilities that I wish to use. Additionally, the Hand of Healing, you want to get used to spamming this ability, because you can just press it whenever you want. Like as I'm running through here, I'm fighting some monsters. If I take any amount of damage, I can just go, hey, kobolds, yeah, beat them up. Press all my buttons, beat them up. And then if I take any hits, I just heal. There's no cost to it. You can just do it whenever you want. And as I said, if you get a spell power item, it feels insane. So you want to make sure you're using this button as much as you physically can. However, you might notice, oh, there's like a lot of buttons here. I've got Fist of Iron, I have Stunning Fist, I have Hand of Healing, I have Whirlwind Attack, I have Quick Strike, I have all these Elemental Words abilities. That's already a lot of spells. Yes, it is. And I recommend you keybind on this character. If you haven't done it, make sure you find things that are comfortable for you. Some people will keybind using their keyboard, where they use like the numbers 1 to 4 because they're right above the WASD so they can quickly reach. Other people, like myself, I rebind common keys around WASD. So for example, R, I have the R button. activates Hand of Healing. It's very easy to hit because R is next to where my hands are. I have Whirlwind Attack on F. Again, very easy to hit for me, as well as my Quick Strike, which I have on Shift F. So I have R, Shift R, F, Shift F, C, Shift C, V, Shift V, as well as all of my buttons, and then Shift all of those same numbers. So keybinds is really relevant on Monk because they have a lot of attacks. So make sure you're finding keybinds that are comfortable for you. And don't worry, R is auto run by default. You can just rebind auto run to something else, because auto run is something you're doing outside of combat. So if you make it like, I don't know, like the P button on the keyboard or something, well, you can just reach over and press P when you're out of combat and it's not a big deal. But being able to press something like R really quickly to heal yourself is pretty nice. So that way you can have access to all of your abilities right away. Another thing that's relevant about Monk is monks get not only the ability Evasion, which lets them protect themselves from damage from reflex saves. So if I stand in this trap here, if I make my save, I take 0. If I make my save, there we go, I had to roll an 11. I took 0 damage from the effect. As you get higher levels, it turns into improved evasion. But as I mentioned before, make sure that you're being careful about how you're working with your evasion effects, because you know, sometimes you're going to fail anyway, so you want to make sure you're tumbling through traps, especially if you can see the traps ahead of time. Another pro tip when it actually comes to Monk is similar to a lot of other melees. Don't worry about attacking like the frontline targets. You want to go for the ones that are highest priority. So if you see a bunch of monsters and there's a spellcaster in the back, make sure you go and run and kill that spellcaster as quickly as you can. You want to jump in there and just get them. No hesitation, hit those spellcasters. So in this instance, there's like a pack of monsters here. And maybe I might find, if I come around this corner, there's like a actual shaman. Even though I have tons of monsters attacking me and I could choose to fight whatever I wish, I'm going to go for the shaman because he's the most dangerous and go after this guy first. Then I can turn my attention to all the other monsters, maybe heal myself, and then kind of move around. Another thing that's important when playing a character like this, don't just let yourself get surrounded. It is cool to use Whirlwind Attack to hit multiple monsters, but if you let yourself get surrounded, you're going to take a lot of damage. So try to like just gently back up while you're fighting monsters, so that way only the ones in the front are able to hit you at any given moment, and it will save you and protect you from taking a lot of damage too quickly. Now, when fighting boss type monsters, sometimes they can be quite scary and you might take a lot of damage from them. So if you notice a monster is about to charge up and use a big attack, you can tumble and all of a sudden all the attacks are now misses because you managed to dodge every single attack that came in at you. It's cool that you get that ability for one whole second and allows you to stay very, very safe against monsters when they're trying to hit you. So make sure you're using tumble appropriately, as it does give you a lot of defense, especially if you decide to take on some of the higher modes like Reaper mode or something like that. Tumbling into a fight so you're immune for the first second while you're attacking can also be quite good. Now, the last pro tip I have for you is actually a little bit of a secret, but I do this all the time on stream and I've been asked by many. How do you fast recall? There is a trick that you can do with monks that allows you to recall out of your adventures like that. Usually, if I click recall, there's this long bar and it takes 10 seconds to charge up before you can leave the adventure, but you can skip it. The way to do this is first you have to keybind one of your stances. So in this case, we're going to use Ocean Stance. So I'm going to turn off my Ocean Stance. It's number 1, so I press it to turn it off. Now, what you do is you activate your stance and then accept the recall. If done properly, where it's activate stance and accept recall, you will teleport instantaneously out of the dungeon. So you only need 2 fingers for this. 1 finger over top of whatever key you put the Ocean Stance on, and another finger over yes, and it's Ocean Stance, yes. And now I skipped the animation and I'm all the way out in time. It's a neat trick you can do. You can do this anywhere in the game where there's a recall bar. And some of you might be like, yeah, but who cares? Why would I need to do a fast recall? I can just recall out normally. And there's 2 reasons why you might want a fast recall. The first is if you're being attacked by monsters or you're in a dangerous place, fast recall lets you escape with your life or without having to worry about being attacked, which is kind of nice. And the second is every time you recall, it takes 10 seconds, which doesn't sound like a lot. But to get to the level cap, you might do over 200 quests to get up there. And let's just say 200 times 10 is 2,000. So 2,000 seconds, which is, by my calculations, over, I think, 30 minutes of recall time. So 30 minutes of time you can save whenever you do a past life or you're leveling up on recalling out of dungeons. Sounds like a worthwhile cause to me. When you think about it in one quest, who cares? But once you start shaving off 10 seconds out of every dungeon, and once you get good at this, you will be shaving off those 10 seconds. Yeah, saving 30 minutes. Not too bad. I'll take it. Now let's talk about items and stats on this character. You're going to have a lot of items you can get on your character that are going to give you increase in stats, and here's what you want to look for. First, you're going to be looking for things that increase your wisdom and your constitution, and sometimes your dexterity. Dexterity gives you increases to your armor class, but other than that, it doesn't super matter. So constitution and wisdom are the most important things. If you don't get a dex item, it doesn't matter that much. You do want to get a small strength item. So if you get a +2 or a +4, maybe you find a strength augment and you put it into something, that'll help you out. But for the most part, it's wisdom and constitution. Then anything that increases your armor class is good. Monks don't wear armor, and they even give you a mage armor item at the beginning, which is nice. But once you actually pick up any like outfit, the outfits will all give you a flat armor bonus, so you don't really need to worry about actually having that, so you'll be fine on that front. Then anything that gives you bonuses to dodge, which is good. Anything that bonuses your saving throws is nice. Things that give you access to double strike is good, or if you find things that give you melee power is also good. Elemental resistances are nice because your monk has low defenses against magic. And then anything that gives you physical resistance or magical resistance is also a good stat. Additionally, we have the melee stats here as well. So you want to look for things that increase your attack bonus. Those are items that will be called accuracy. They will say that on them. So that increases your attack bonus. This is your chance to hit monsters. To hit a monster, you got to beat their armor class. So raising your attack bonus is good. Similarly, an item with the stat damage on it raises the amount of damage you do per hit. So you want to look for items that have attack bonus and damage. That can be like, you can find helmets, rings, necklaces, goggles. So you just keep an eye out for those types of items. And then lastly, your more powerful abilities, like your crowd control abilities, like Stunning Fist, these scale off of stunning. So you want to make sure you have items that give you bonuses to stunning. Stunning will help not only your Stunning Fist now, but as you level up, it'll also help your Tomb of Jade and your Kukendo. So it's very good to have items that give you a bonus to stunning. But outside of that, that's basically all the stats you need. Con, wisdom, some armor class. Also, if you get a health item, that's not too bad. Your saving throws, your dodge, all the elemental resistances, physical and magical resistance, and then attack, damage, stunning. And if you have all those stats, your monk is going to feel really good. Oh yes, and positive spell power. I forgot about that. They're called devotion items, and they grant positive spell power. They are quite good. You can get gloves, you can get rings that'll help you out. You can actually get it as a stat on hand wraps, but usually you want to look for like weapon stats, like hand wraps that give you like extra fire damage, as an example, is usually a good option. Or whatever stats you can get. But realistically, if you get some devotion hand wraps, that will also serve you well. Since your character hits so hard anyway, you won't have to worry about having the craziest hand wraps in the game. Okay, and lastly, we're going to be going over the build here just to give you a quick rundown in case you want a walkthrough of how to do these things. So to start, again, we're going as a wood elf. You don't have to be a wood elf, but it is pretty good, so I would recommend it for sure. Then for the base stats, we're starting, if you're a 28-point build, you have a little bit less wisdom and strength to start, but if you have a 32-point build, you start with a 10 strength and an 18 wisdom, and then you have enough dexterity with a 16, and then putting a +1 here on your level up means you can take all of the 2 weapon fighting feats as we go up. Now for your skills, you want jump, concentration, tumble, use magic device, and I believe I have a point in swim here just at the end because you have nothing else to put your point in, so that's why you have that there. As far as your feats go, Stunning Fist is a great starter. It helps you like stun monsters. We grab 2 weapon fighting, and then the abilities that are prerequisites for whirlwind attack by level 6, so dodge and mobility. Then you take swords to plowshares, which improves your critical chance. We grab improve 2 weapon fighting to give you more offhand attack chance. Precision here is really nice because precision allows you to have more accuracy and also critically hit monsters like that you can't normally critically hit, like skeletons and constructs, which is good. And then we take improved critical bludgeoning later. When you move into epics, you basically just grab all of the epic feats that add damage. So that's what we're doing. You're grabbing all the epic feats that add damage. This adds damage, 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 damage. Once you read them, you'll be like, oh, damage. The last 2 are not damage, they're defense, but they're still nice to have. Also, monks get a path. You can either do a light monk or a dark monk. This is a light monk. I forgot to mention that. Dark monk gets a lot of damage effects and can be good for certain things, but light monk gets all the free healing. And trust me, that free healing is very, very nice. Then we move on to the enhancements, and the enhancements here, as I mentioned, you are mostly a Shintao monk. So if you look here, we start with the Henshin Mystic, grabbing some of the stuff. Then we move into Shintao, like I mentioned, and then we move back to Ninja Spy to grab the haste boost, and then you finish off Shintao, and you kind of go from there. In epics, you have 3 different epic destinies that you can use, and for here, we're going to mostly use Grandmaster Flower's Legendary Dreadnought and Shadow Dancer. And the idea behind this is Grandmaster of Flowers will give you the attack Drifting Lotus, which is basically like Whirlwind Attack on steroids. It's Whirlwind Attack that has a stun and adds an insane amount of damage, so you get 2 of them now, which is really cool. On top of that, at the end, you get an ability called Everything is Nothing, where you put your hands together and you erase a bunch of monsters from the universe using your Serenity. Very, very cool thematically, and it's also quite good, so which is nice. Then we use Legendary Dreadnought to get bonus damage as well as improving our action boosts. Action boost haste is how you do damage at the end game, so you're going to want to use that, so improving your action boost is pretty good. And then you didn't have any points left over, so we went with the Shadow Dancer for Shadow Training because it's just 1 point for a bunch of stats, and it's not too bad. But overall, that is everything you need to know about how to play monks at the beginning. So this is your basic guide here for Monk. Now, one of the things you might be wondering if you're watching this or you're a returning player, you might be like, but Strimtom, you didn't talk about combos. What about Monk combos? There are no combos anymore. Monk combos were taken out of the game because they really didn't do anything and there was a kind of a clunky system. So your combo abilities are in the trees. So if you missed out on a combo ability and you're like, man, I remember using this combo or that combo, don't worry. You can still have access to most of them. They're in the trees. The bad ones were plucked out of the game, but that's okay. Most of them were kind of bad. So the class is now simpler. It's easier to use. You just press the buttons you think are good and you have fun with Monk. Monk is currently one of the best leveling characters to play. It's powerful, it's fast, it does a whole bunch of damage, and it is really, really, really good. So I can definitely recommend it if you want to get started. It is a great starter character. Monk used to be a really bad starter character because you need a lot of stats and you have to figure stuff out, but they streamlined it and now it is quite good. However, I might have missed something. So if you are an expert Monk player and you're watching this video and you have some wisdom to impart upon people, please leave your Monk-based comments down below and let people know what they need to know so they can be better monks in the future. But that's all I have for today, so thank you for watching. I'm excited to share with you the next Beginner Basics, which is coming out very soon, but it's not going to be out right now because you have to wait. Anyways, see you later. Bye-bye.